us back here at St James's Park, where it's been a chaotic afternoon, probably the best way to describe it. Rollercoaster game against Luton Town, eventually ended 4-4. Looked like it could have been worse, but overall feeling it could have been a whole lot better too.
Yeah,
you wanted it to be a lot better.
Yeah, I did, yeah. No, it's a really hard game to summarise in many ways. The result is hard to summarise because, look, from 4-2 down to make it 4-4 to claim a point on any other given day, it feels like a good point, but because of the result in midweek, all the positivity and momentum that should have come from that against Aston Villa, in many ways it felt like a little bit of a slip up today, and I know not everyone will agree with that, but that's how I feel. For all the sort of elation of getting back to 4-4, I thought Newcastle would go on to win the game. To be honest, I think they had 15 minutes left, if not a little bit longer, to go and do it. Obviously didn't, and yeah, for me it does feel like 2 points dropped. As I say, even though it's when you're 4-2 down, there's not many times you can see this points drop when you come back from that, but it does feel that way. Yeah, for me a disappointing afternoon, especially after that game in midweek. I think in many ways that the two games have probably flipped round, where against Aston Villa you would have taken a point, and then 3 points here, it's almost flipped round. So I suppose if you could look at it that way, then maybe you can take a bit more positivity from that. But yeah, it was a really good opportunity to follow up in midweek and break back into that top 7. But yeah, Newcastle United after that 4-4 draw find themselves 9th in the Premier League still, and have some chasing to do if they ought to end the season in the European places.
Yeah, that Villa win gave them a platform, and it just feels like a little bit of a wasted opportunity. Newcastle had a great start to the game, took the lead after 6 minutes. Sean Longstaff and were pegged back by a set piece, and Sean Longstaff scores again. So they've taken the lead twice in the first half, and then you see defending the way they did, that Ross Barkley goal, and then the penalty down that right hand side for Luton. So Dan Burns' side on the left, he'll be subject to a bit of criticism after today, and was hauled off as Eddie Howe spotted the danger at Aston Villa on Tuesday night, put Tino Livramento on. I think it was maybe a case of it being a little bit too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
On this occasion, because at that point Newcastle were 4-2 down. Tino Livramento comes on, as does Harvey Barnes, and then Newcastle get it back to 4-4, and all of a sudden the momentum's swinging in their favour. But yeah, defensively, particularly at home actually, well, I say particularly at home, they're just conceding far too many goals. You look back, it's 4 goals today, 3 goals against Man City, 3 goals against Forest, 4 goals against Liverpool. They're too leaky at the back, too disorganised at times, and it's so uncharacteristic compared to the team we saw last season. I think there's probably mitigating factors to that. I think Nick Pope does make a big difference. No slight on Martin Dubravka, although he could have maybe done better for a couple of goals today. But yeah, there's changes in personnel. Eddie Howe pointed to that. But yeah, Dan Burn today, I think everyone in St James's Park was shouting for Tino Livramento to come on. It was glaringly obvious that change needed to be made, and there's probably a case Tino Livramento could have started the game, but generally, I know you're a big Dan Burn fan.
Yeah.
Given the performance on Tuesday night, Eddie Howe was never going to start Tino Livramento. Always the preference to start Dan Burn.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think anyone can criticise Eddie Howe for starting Dan Burn because of the 2 performances he's had back to back. He's man of the match with Fulham last week, and bar that 10 minute spell in Aston Villa when Leon Bailey came on, he was actually really good then as well. But yeah, I think the danger was there in the first half. We're seeing it. He was burned for pace several times on that right hand side. Dan Burn.
Pardon the pun.
Pardon the pun. Yeah, I didn't mean that. It was unintentional. And I think at half time probably would have been the right time to bring Burn off. But I think the case with Eddie Howe is he's probably shown his loyalty, where he doesn't want to embarrass the player by hauling him off it at half time. But it's loyalty like that which can cost you. And ultimately it did for Newcastle today. I mean, I don't want to heavily criticise Dan Burn here, because as you said there, Dom, I'm a big Dan Burn fan, and I think the reaction to Dan Burn's performance has been harsh because of he's done a lot for this this club, and I know there's not much room for being sentimental when you're trying to go on to bigger and better things. But last season wasn't that long ago, and Dan Burn was an instrumental part of that. He's had a tough afternoon. I don't think he was helped by his manager at all. Eddie Howe would have seen the threat of Luton's right hand side, which is where the target Dan Burn's side was targeted from the start. He would have seen that, and in his analysis he would have been fully aware of the threat that Luton brought down that side. And I think in many ways, because he didn't bring Dan Burn off, almost probably a harsh term this, but hung him out to dry by the end. And I think he obviously came off at 4-2, but fans by that point were literally I think it was the Gallagher and Strawberry corner were chanting Tino, Tino. And you touched on it there. I think everyone in the stadium was in many ways just desperate to see Tino come on, because, as I say, it was a hard watch for Dan Burn today. He'll bounce back from it, I'm sure. He's still got a big part to play, I feel, and I'm sure Eddie Howe will select him many more times at left back, albeit it might come as under criticism from supporters. But yeah, a really tough afternoon for him. The lowest of my player marks by a distance. But as I say, it wasn't a great performance. He was just unfortunately the one that was, as I say, hung out to dry in many ways.
Yeah, and now it's twice Tino Livermento's came on and just solidified the back line.
Well, Newcastle got much better after, didn't it? To be fair, when Tino came on, brought a lot more balance down that left hand side. It brought an attacking threat as well. So Newcastle managed to put Luton under pressure, which they really struggled to do that in the first half. I mean, Luton pretty much nullified every single one of Newcastle United threat. You think about Bruno didn't get going until the final stages. Kieran Trippier, although made the assist in the first 6 minutes, didn't get forward as much as he usually does at St James's Park. So Luton nullified Newcastle for a lot of that game. But yeah, I know Newcastle were chasing the game, but you could see straight away the balance Tino give Newcastle down that left hand side. And of course, the introduction of Harvey Barnes helped to. It was good to see Harvey Barnes back on the score sheet today. Yeah,
really good. I think that change, the double change with Tino Livramento and Harvey Barnes coming on, just swung the momentum in Newcastle's favour a little bit. The chaos almost worked in their favour too, where Luton scored a quick fire double to go 4-2 in front, and then Newcastle by the 73rd minute, I think it was just after the hour mark, Luton went 4-2 in front. Then by the 73rd minute, 10 minutes later, it was 4-4. So that was really good. Probably the disappointing part was Newcastle had, it was
10 minutes.
It was about 25 minutes, wasn't it, in total? Maybe the best part of half an hour to find a winner, and they couldn't do that. And actually Luton continued to threaten as well. But yeah, Harvey Barnes back. Big boost for Newcastle, really, just to have those options off the bench. Callum Wilson also coming on as well. So the changes Eddie Howe's able to make are actually making positive impacts in games, because I think a point was raised to Eddie Howe during the press conference that maybe a month ago, when Eddie Howe didn't have those options off the bench, they would have lost that game probably 4-2, maybe even more. So yeah, Harvey Barnes coming on, great finish from him as well. Nice, calm, side-footed effort. Just a shame he couldn't add to it, because he had an opportunity soon after as well, as did Jacob Murphy. But yeah, just on the, not to go too negative, but yeah, on the Dan Burn stuff, the penalty he conceded, I said at the time that was coming all afternoon, because he was getting rinsed, and he did a dangerous challenge in the same position at the opposite end in the first half. And if you're a fast winger in the Premier League coming up against Dan Burn and you've got a bit about you, you'd be rubbing your hands together. I think that's an area where teams will target, and good teams. And Luton, to be fair, coming up against Newcastle twice this season, and they've looked good on both occasions. I thought, obviously, vulnerabilities at the back this afternoon, and there could have been short at key moments, but they'll cause plenty of teams problems, as they did for Brighton on Tuesday night. It's 8 goals in 2 games for them. And then Newcastle, just defensively need to address things very, very quickly. It's, like I say, it's probably one step forward, one step back a little bit, where defensively they were so solid for most of the game at Aston Villa, and then the 5 minutes they looked a bit shaky, or 10 minutes they looked a bit shaky, that was addressed. Today, apart from maybe the first 10 minutes when they went 1-0 ahead, they were shaky all for the majority of the game, and the changes probably didn't come quickly enough in some ways. But yeah, speaking of changes, we've got an injury boost in terms of Callum Wilson and Harvey Barnes being back. But again, speaking of a step forward, a step back, Anthony Gordon, another blow.
Yeah, they left the stadium on crutches wearing a protective boot. Eddie Howe was asked afterwards, said he was in a lot of pain at half time. Hoped it wasn't too bad, but didn't know the severity at this stage. So we'll wait and see on that one. I think you mentioned it before, Dom, Bruno's injury last year when he twisted his ankle against Fulham. He was in a similar position and then played a week later against Crystal Palace. So you hope it's one of them where it's just precautionary. But yeah, when Newcastle seem to get players back, they seem to lose another. And look, if they will lose Anthony Gordon for a sustained period, it's such a massive blow. And we talk about getting options back and options off the bench. Then if they lose Gordon, then you've literally just got Harvey Barnes as your left hand side, and you've got that no option off the bench. So yeah, that was a real concern. As I say, hopefully it looks worse than what it is, and it's all just precautionary. And of course, yeah, there were Newcastle without Alexander Isak as well. Jason Tyndall said yesterday that he was be close to making it. We joke now, we're sort of new in our video, that was never going to happen. When he's back, we'll wait and see. I think Eddie Howe was asked afterwards. Again, just said we hope it's not serious. It seems to be like the catchphrase for Eddie Howe is, hope it's not serious. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah, little next to no update on him as well. Obviously Joe Willock wasn't here, Jamal Lascelles wasn't here, Callum Wilson was, who came on and battled the two Luton centre halves, but really got a sniff at goal. So yeah, the injury situation seems to be very mixed. They get one player back and they lose another. It's been a real frustration of this season, but as I say, Newcastle had enough in the matchday squad today to beat Luton and win. Get that fifth in the final 25 minutes. They didn't manage to do that, and yeah, for me it's ultimately been a disappointing evening, I say, despite coming from 2 goals down to draw.
Yeah, you should never really need 5 goals to win a game, especially at home, especially against a newly promoted side. No disrespect to Luton. No. I think they've shown enough in the 2 games against Newcastle and many other games this season that they are putting up a real good fight and could well stay in the Premier League. Certainly will have turned some more heads on Tyneside with today's performance. But yeah, for Newcastle, I think it's a bizarre game, but the feeling at full time's almost quite familiar. The frustration, the what are we doing defensively, and it's more goals conceded. I mean, I said after the game, you look last season, Newcastle conceded more than 2 goals on just 2 occasions last season. Now you look in the past 2 months, you've had Everton, Spurs, Man City, Liverpool, Forest, Luton. There might be another team in there. All put 3 or more goals past Newcastle, and it's too many. It's far too many, and it will be Newcastle's undoing along with the injuries this season if it's not addressed. I think what would go a long way to addressing that could be being a bit brave and playing a Tino Livramento left back, giving Dan Burn a rest out the side. But Eddie Howe has shown a lot of loyalty to Dan Burn, and we'll see, because it's a big game against Nottingham Forest next weekend, and we thought the Villa game could be a season-defining one. It still could be. They haven't lost today. They very well could have lost today, Newcastle. You take the positives from it, but like Jordan says, it does feel like 2 points dropped. If you were said at the start of the game, especially after Newcastle took the lead after 6 minutes, that Newcastle would end up drawing this game. 4-4 you probably wouldn't have expected, but you would have been disappointed with that. It's probably clutching at straws a little bit, but any satisfaction with this point comes from the fact Newcastle, it could have been a lot worse and they were 4-2 down. But yeah, any positives you can take from this game, Jordan? Because I'm a bit more positive with the draw. I know you were not very happy with the point.
Positives that we're seeing Harvey Barnes back on the pitch, who obviously scored. Honestly, I'm struggling to take positives from it. I mean, I suppose a positive is they didn't when they were 4-2 down, that they came and they showed a bit of fight to come back, and I think that is a positive. But in terms of the overall result, I know I sat in this video on Tuesday night after Aston Villa, and I said that result is season defining. Newcastle United now will start building momentum, and they're back and they'll move up the table. And here we are, 5 days later. Feels like we're back to square one. Maybe that's harsh.
Square
but
1.5.
Yeah, square 1.5.
Square 2.
That's a good way to look at it. It does. It feels like Newcastle's at a bit of a standstill, and the games they've probably got a favourite run coming up. But go to Nottingham Forest now, headed into the this game after Aston Villa, full of confidence, and now I go to Nottingham Forest with not feeling as confident. So, I mean, Nottingham Forest, whilst on the subject, Newcastle last 3 home games conceded 3 goals. Nottingham Forest 3 goals, and Man City 4 goals here. I think the result today, the performance today, was probably carbon copy of that Nottingham Forest game, except the fact that Newcastle United finally had options, bring off the bench. They didn't have that against Forest. I think the options made a difference, but a lot of teams are finding ways to play through Newcastle. They've had very, very open games, and that's a real concern for me, because even the first half of the first, split the first half of the season in half when Newcastle United were at home, they didn't concede that many goals at home.
Hardly any, no.
Whereas now, the floodgates have sort of opened the last couple of games, and we've all spoke about the away form, but is now the home form a little bit of a concern, possibly, because I say shipping so many goals at home is really uncharacteristic. And the likes of Nottingham Foresters and Luton Town, no disrespect to them, but you don't expect them to come here and score goals for fun in many ways. Man City, you sort of expect that because they've got that quality, but Nottingham Forest and Luton Town are teams that are fighting relegation, and they're coming here and they're finding it quite easy to score. So next week is going to be interesting. I think they've got to go and win again. I've said that so many times this season, but because there's been a little bit of disappointment from the day, the pressure is now back on to go and get a result, because look, there's still a long way to go in the season, but Newcastle, because of the first half of the season they've had, because of the injuries and struggled for form, they haven't got much room for error if they want to go and finish in the top 7. So they need to start winning games and fast. And of course the FA Cup is a real positive, and I think that has potential. And if Newcastle can have run that for the almost paper over the Premier League form. But it's just the season of disappointments. It has continued today. I'm hoping, having been so positive on Tuesday, that it will turn eventually. And as I say, Newcastle can find that momentum that they know they've got, and can go on a run of form where they can finish high up the table.
Yeah, it's interesting you speak about the home form. We were speaking down in the press box during the game, and for about an hour Newcastle were playing almost as if they were the away side.
Yeah.
I thought the way they were almost trying to play on the counter, catch Luton on the break, and they did it successfully on a couple of occasions for the first 2 goals. And then the only time Newcastle really started to look like the home side was probably after Kieran Trippier's equaliser to make it 4-3, and then the crowd went, no, we can get something here, and then Newcastle were on the front foot for the most part, and then Luton were the side trying to play on the counter, play on the break. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot to analyse for Eddie Howe after that game. Obviously disappointed with the goals conceded, and I guess the goals in recent weeks being leaked and things like that. You point to the defence, but you could also make a case for the midfield today as well. Funny day for the midfield. It was bizarre, wasn't it? Because every player in the midfield played key roles in the goals, but were almost anonymous at times defensively. Luton, again, as Ross Barkley did at Kenilworth Road, strolled through the midfield on a few occasions and bossed it at times. I thought Bruno, for the best part of an hour, was bullied and had a really poor game by his standards, but then came alive for the final 20 minutes, and probably a key reason Newcastle got a point today. Sean Longstaff scored 2 goals, was on a hat-trick for the majority of the game, and honestly wouldn't have known he was playing for most of it. It was bizarre. And then Lewis Miley, great pass for the opening goal, and set up Harvey Barnes as well, or won the ball back for Harvey Barnes' equaliser. So again, all the midfielders involved in key moments today. But yeah, I think in terms of protecting that back four and the goalkeeper,
Yeah.
don't do enough when you don't have a Joe Linton in the side. Even a Sandro Tonali, who at times did struggle in that role, but again, an experienced defensive sort of head can help. Joe Willock's energy is missed as well. Even Elliot Anderson, just those options. I think there's some naivety at times, particularly defensively from the midfield, and it's been exposed by opposition teams on quite a few occasions.
Yeah, can't argue with that. I don't think I've got much else to add. I think I just want to go home and scoot into a pillow, I think, after after that very disappointing. People might feel differently, maybe it's just me, but yeah, I do. I feel very disappointed after that day, despite, as I say, it was a great game for the neutral. It really was. I can appreciate that, but from a Newcastle United perspective, not to win is a real disappointment, as I say, after Tuesday.
Yeah, I think you could say, we talked about it as well, there was probably a lack of, while Tuesday night's win at Aston Villa was almost like a hallmark Newcastle United performance, a trademark performance of what we saw last season. Today, they sort of lacked that identity that we've seen for so long under Eddie Howe. We made a point during the game that this performance, this game could have taken place. It was so bizarre at any point in Newcastle's history. It could have been a Steve Bruce team, maybe not a Rafa Benitez team, could have been a Steve McLaren team. And that's no slight on Eddie Howe, it was just that sort of game, and I think Newcastle today lacked that identity. Were known love, and it has got them so far over the past couple of years under Eddie Howe. We'll take a point. Jordan might not, but from 2-0 down, we'll take a point, and hopefully if they go and win at the City Ground next weekend, 7 points from 3 games, all of a sudden doesn't look so bad. But again, a lot of pressure on that game next weekend, and yeah, hopefully we'll be joined by Liam Kennedy. We were joined by Liam today, but again, he's still feeling under the weather. He described himself as on the bench today,
on the bench, yeah,
and was unwunwilling to come off it.
To be fair, you had lots of I forgot the name. What the called? That's the one.
You wouldn't appreciate saying that,
No,
but yeah, it's true. He didn't have a face for camera today, Liam. Although he does for the most part. I won't insult him there. But yeah, moving on. We'll end it there. We've waffled on. We've been taking that mantle from Liam, carrying it on today, and we'll end it there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for all your Geordie Journos content, and we'll see you at Eddie Howe's press conference. Hopefully it's Eddie Howe this time.
Be Jason Tyndall.
He's feeling better today. That was an injury fitness boost for Newcastle United. So we'll see you there at the Newcastle United training ground on Friday.